Non-farm payroll job estimates come from a survey of business establishments and government agencies and are intended to measure the number of jobs, not the number of people employed. These estimates exclude employees in agriculture, private households, and the self-employed. As we noted in today's press release, the reference period for the establishment and household surveys was the pay period or week that includes the 12th of the month. The reference week for July was specifically July 11th to July 17th. Therefore, these data provide a snapshot of Colorado's employment situation as vaccination rates among the adult population continued to increase and pandemic-related restrictions were relaxed for businesses across the state. Additionally, the July reference week overlaps a period in which COVID-19 case rates for Colorado were relatively low prior to the recent uptick due to the Delta variant. Revisions to July data, along with preliminary estimates for August, those will be released Friday, September 17th. Expected revisions to non-farm payroll estimates for first quarter 2021 will be released next Wednesday, August 25th. For the household survey, Colorado's seasonally adjusted unemployment rate dropped to 6.1% in July. The state's rate had held at 6.2% for the 2 months prior. An additional unemployment decline of a little over 800 would have moved the state's rate down to 6% last month on a rounded basis. The number of unemployed Coloradans dropped by 3,200 in July to 194,000 in total. As a reminder, the total unemployed figure derived from the household survey includes a broader definition of unemployment beyond just those receiving UI benefits. In July, Colorado was tied with Mississippi for the 36th lowest unemployment rate in the nation. Nebraska had the lowest rate at 2.3%, and Nevada had the highest rate at 7.7%. The US unemployment rate fell to 5.4% in July. As we mentioned in today's press release, the counties with the highest not seasonally adjusted unemployment rates were Pueblo, Huerfano, Los Animas, Adams, and Gilpin. 29 Colorado counties had July unemployment rates that were under 5%. A year prior, that number only totaled to 16. Among the 7 metro areas in the state, Pueblo had the highest rate at 8.6%. Boulder and Fort Collins had the lowest rates at 4.9 and 5.1% respectively. Denver, Greeley, Colorado Springs, and Grand Junction all had rates between 6 and 6.3%. It is recommended to compare all of those sub-state rates I mentioned earlier to the statewide not seasonally adjusted unemployment rate, which was 5.9% in July. In July, Colorado's employment to population ratio of 64.2% was tied with 2 other states for the 7th highest in the nation. In comparison, the US employment to population ratio last month was 58.4%. Additionally, the state's labor force participation rate of 68.3% ranked 4th highest in July and well exceeds the US rate of 61.7%. Shifting to the establishment survey, the preliminary estimates show that on a seasonally adjusted basis, Colorado added 14,800 non-farm payroll jobs from June to July. Additionally, June payroll figures were revised down slightly by 800 jobs, which altered the change from May to a gain of 10,000 rather than the originally reported gain of 10,800. As a reminder, monthly revisions are based on additional responses from businesses and government agencies since the last published estimates. Colorado's over-the-month change of 14,800 non-farm payroll jobs ranked as the 19th largest nationally in July. The state has added 106,900 payroll jobs in the first 7 months of 2021. That ranks as the 14th most jobs gained so far in 2021. Colorado has now regained 290,400 of the 375,800 non-farm payroll jobs lost in March and April of last year. The total job gains of 290,400 over the past 15 months represent a recovery of a little over 77% of those jobs lost earlier in the year, which ranks as the 16th fastest recovery in the nation over that period. A similar analysis of the change in U.S. non-farm payroll jobs since April 2020 revealed the U.S. has added back a little under 75% of jobs lost. At the sector level, a few private industries had positive gains in July, while a couple experienced losses exceeding 1,000 for the month. Professional business services added 5,000 jobs in July. Within that industry, professional and technical service payrolls grew by 2,900, while the diverse administrative, waste, and support services sector had gains totaling 2,100. Leisure and hospitality once again had substantial gains, adding 4,300 payroll jobs last month. The private education and health services supersector gained 1,000 jobs in July. However, the majority of those additional jobs are concentrated within healthcare. The two industries with significant job losses in July were construction and trade, transportation, utilities, both shedding payrolls by 1,600. Construction employment has declined by 2,600 jobs since July 2020. On a seasonally adjusted basis, the government sector added 6,300 jobs last month. The majority of those gains were concentrated within the local government education component of that sector. However, those gains may be overstated, which is also a national issue that the Bureau of Labor Statistics identified within their July employment situation press release from earlier this month. Per the BLS, staffing fluctuations in education due to the pandemic have distorted the normal seasonal buildup and layoff patterns, likely contributing to job gains in July. Without the typical seasonal employment increases earlier, there were fewer layoffs at the end of the school year, resulting in job gains after seasonal adjustment. Fortunately, these variations make it more challenging to discern the current employment trends in these education industries. So maybe until the benchmark procedure happens early next year and new seasonal adjustment factors are included, where we'll have a better idea of what government payroll growth looks like, particularly within the local education sector. In the first 7 months of 2021, when looking at the state's 17 private industry sectors, accommodation and food services has added the most jobs at 52,000, or 49% of all total non-farm payroll jobs. Arts, entertainment, and recreation has the second most gains at 13,400. Accommodation and food services and accommodation and food services and arts, entertainment, and recreation make up the leisure and hospitality supersector. Professional, scientific, and technical services has added 10,500 jobs in 2021. On the other hand, gains this year have been relatively low for information, manufacturing, and retail trade. Those gains vary between around 200 to 500 jobs total. Construction and finance and insurance have experienced varying levels of job loss in 2021. Overall, the private sector added 8,500 jobs in July, with June payroll numbers revised down 2,600 jobs. From May 2020 to July, private businesses have added 293,300 payroll jobs, compared to losses of 362,200 in March and April of last year. That represents a recovery of around 80% of private sector jobs lost earlier last year, which outpaces the US recovery rate of 77%. Colorado's private sector job recovery rate ranks as the 16th fastest in the nation. And finally, here are the number of jobs added in the first 7 months of 2021 for substate Colorado, specifically for the 7 metropolitan statistical areas, or MSA, and the remainder of the state that is not in an MSA. The Denver MSA has added 65,300 jobs, or 61% of the 106,900 total over that same period. In fact, last month in July, the Denver MSA payrolls grew by over 10,000. Colorado Springs has gained a little over 13,000 jobs. Boulder gains equals 6,400, while Fort Collins has added 3,800 jobs so far in 2021. The Greeley, Grand Junction, and Pueblo metro areas have gained between 1,200 and 1,900 payroll jobs. The remaining 47 non-metro counties have combined to gain an aggregated total of nearly 14,000 non-farm payroll jobs in the first 7 months of 2021. And I think we're going to take questions after Phil's part, so feel free to chat those in. But before handing this off to Phil, I do want to give some quick statistics on those who have expiring benefits or who may see their claim status impacted with the expiration of federal benefits at the beginning of September. For the week ending August 14th, there were 87,147 claimants that were paid from either the PUC or PUA programs. There were also 116,390 claimants who received some sort of FPUC payment, and that's across all programs. And finally, there's an estimated 7,200 claimants on regular UI who have less than 5 weeks remaining on their benefits. So that's key because when PUC exists, those individuals will transfer to PUC, but there's no federal program, then they won't have benefits to draw from. So that's a key number to follow as well. With that, I'll hand it over to Phil.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you for joining us all this morning. I'm just going to go over a couple of topics for you, provide some updates related to the programs ending, some information related to our rollout of multi-factor authentication for claimants, and also the rollout of the mixed earners unemployment compensation program that occurred earlier this week. So, quick reminder for all that these federal programs are ending effective the week ending September 4th, which is the final week that claimants can request payment on the federal unemployment benefits program. So this includes Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, or PUA, which is the program for gig workers and the self-employed. It also includes Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation, which is the extension for individuals who were on regular state unemployment benefits and had exhausted all of those. And also, it is the end of the federal Pandemic Unemployment Compensation Program, which is that additional weekly payment of $300. As Ryan had just touched on here briefly, our estimates currently indicate that we anticipate about 87,000 Coloradans will lose either PEUC or PUA benefits, and about 116,000 Coloradans will no longer receive the $300 weekly supplement on top of the regular unemployment state claim. As we get closer and closer to that week ending September 4th, we continue to direct claimants to resources that will help them successfully return to the workforce. As a notice, there are about 122 jobs right now in Connecting Colorado, with a lot of large employers having several positions open. As an example, Schneider has dozens of truck driver positions open, some with up to a $10,000 signing bonus. There's more than 22,000 computer and mathematical related jobs listed in Connecting Colorado. United Airlines has dozens of Denver-based jobs open right now across a variety of expertise, some offering a $2,000 signing bonus. There's also more than 35,000 location-neutral jobs available for workers who may not be ready to return to the office. We continue to remind everyone that our network of statewide workforce centers are staffed with employment professionals who can assist with work search efforts, resume writing, interviewing, and help getting out-of-work Coloradans connected to programs and grants that may provide funding for workers to obtain additional training to be competitive in today's workforce. For more information, FAQs and links to resources regarding the end of benefits exist on our website at coloradoui.gov. I'm now going to roll into the fact that we just rolled out multi-factor authentication last night for claimants. As of this morning, over 10,100 claimants had successfully signed up for multi-factor authentication already, and we would continue to encourage to sign up and get their multi-factor set up well before trying to certify weeks this Sunday to establish whether they have any difficulty with it. So this is a result where we are now requiring all claimants to set up multi-factor authentication, also known as MFA, within their MyUI Plus accounts, and every new claimant will be required to set it up moving forward. As we've mentioned before, this is to ensure that we can enhance the security of claimants' MyUI accounts and make it much harder for scammers to use stolen login credentials to compromise accounts and steal benefits. As you all recall, we have had previous press calls where we discussed one of the schemes of sending links by text and having individuals click on those. This is an attempt to help alleviate that, to keep from having individuals have their claims hijacked and taken over by nefarious actors. So we sent out a step-by-step instructions on how to set up MFA to all claimants, and the same instructions are also available on our website at coloradoui.gov. Claimants do not need to click on any link to set up MFA. So this is going to be important because we saw this as we were rolling out MFA. Those nefarious actors will again continue to try to send a text link to tell you that's how you set up MFA. This is not how it's done. The MFA setup options present themselves automatically when claimants log into their MyUI Plus account as they normally would. So again, another reminder that we never send text messages to claimants that include links to anything. And so if any claimant receives a text message with a link purporting to be from CDLE, do not click on the link. This is a scam. We appreciate you reporting these links to us as we work to take them down as rapidly as possible, as do other states where they've seen these same scams and schemes. For security reasons, CDLE and or our vendor call center staff cannot set up or change MFA settings for claimants. Claimants can change their selected MFA method if necessary by selecting the Change MFA Options item in their MyUI Plus navigation menu. It's important that claimants complete this themselves to ensure they are the only individual with access to their account. And finally, moving on to MEUC, this application we actually rolled out late Monday night. So it was available for individuals to begin submitting applications for the mixed earner unemployment compensation beginning on Tuesday morning. A reminder, this is the program that provides an additional $100 per week for individuals who were stuck having to file a state unemployment insurance claim, but had mixed income between that and gig employment. In order to be eligible for this program, the individual must also have had $5,000 in net income from that gig employment. As a result of how the program is written by Congress, we actually anticipate a relatively small population who will be ultimately eligible for this program and will receive those benefits. If, as has gone in other states that were able to roll out the program ahead of us, again, it'll be a low number, somewhere around maybe 1,000, or could exceed 1,000, although most states have been seeing somewhere around 1,000 or less individuals who are ultimately eligible for that. Anyone who receives standard unemployment insurance benefits or PEUC benefits during the benefit weeks after December 27th of 2020 can apply by clicking the Apply for MEUC button on the main menu of their MyUI Plus accounts. And again, a reminder that they must submit documentation of at least $5,000 in self-employment net earnings for the tax year prior to the effective date of their original unemployment insurance claim to be eligible. We have already received fraudulent tax documents on this program. And so anyone who is applying for MEUC and submitting fraudulent tax documents will be investigated for fraud and may be subjected to prosecution just like any other type of unemployment insurance fraud. Another reminder that individuals receiving pandemic unemployment assistance are not eligible for the mixed earners unemployment compensation. The development of that program, again, was for those individuals who would not qualify for the pandemic unemployment assistance program, strictly as a result of having to had prior state wages to where they were required to pay their or file a state claim. All right, and based on what we're seeing in other states again, and with our own employment claims, again, I'm going to reiterate that we expect to see less than 1,000 eligible claimants for this program and expect these back payments for MEUC to be issued starting in September. And with that, Ryan, I think we can roll into some questions here. So.
Yeah, let's jump into questions. Wayne, I'm going to get yours in just a second, but Ed, let me clarify. We should treat these numbers separately. When we're talking about those on PEUC and PUA, right, those programs will expire September 4th. We're talking about 87,147 claimants received a payment through PUA or PEUC for the week ending August 14th. Then when we're talking about the additional $300 per week, the FPUC payment for that same week, August 14th, 116,390 claimants received an FPUC payment. So even if they continue, say, on regular UI receiving benefits, it'll be $300 less after FPUC expires. That final number of 7,200 is just our estimate of how many individuals on regular UI may see their benefit payments expire within the next 5 weeks. Say they're able to claim it until September 14th or something along those lines, and then they can't claim anymore. PUC would no longer exist, so those individuals will also be impacted. So I would say treat those numbers separately when we're looking at who's on PUC and PUA, who's receiving FPUC payments, and then who on regular UI currently may also be impacted by the expiration of those federal benefits. Phil, feel free to add anything else, but thank you for the question, Ed, and giving us a chance to clarify that.
Yeah, I think you pretty much adequately covered it. And again, I'll jump into, Wayne's also here. What's the exact date benefits will end? Again, to clarify, all the federal programs in the last payable week for all of those federal programs, PUA, PEUC, and FPUC. So the extra $300 a week, the extension for individuals who are on state unemployment, and then the program for those with gig workers, the last payable week is the week ending September 4th. Congress wrote it so that the programs actually end September 6th. However, no state is able to pay partial weeks on those programs. Therefore, the last payable week for any state where their week endings are on Saturday is the week ending September 4th. If we had happened to have been a state where our week endings were on Sunday, then the program would have ended on September 5th here as the last week that was payable.
Phil, I think Wayne asked a clarifying question on this. I think it's 122,000 number. I wasn't sure what Wayne is necessarily referencing.
Yes, there are over 122,000 positions or jobs listed right now in Connecting Colorado. So again, we encourage those who are unemployed, struggling to find work, to utilize those resources in Connecting Colorado. We encourage them to utilize the experts at those workforce centers in an attempt to try to secure meaningful employment as they re-enter the Colorado economy here moving forward.
So going up to the top here, yeah, Wayne, you're correct. The unemployment rate drop was driven by that slight decline in the labor force. This does show that you can have a decline in unemployment rate that is also driven by a drop in the labor force. So there's more story to tell than just a lower unemployment rate is better. However, I really do expect the labor force participation rate has dropped slightly over the past few months from the April peak of 68.7%. I do expect these numbers to bounce around a bit, and I do suspect that the household survey might be underestimating the employment gains so far. From CES, we're still seeing very strong gains from a month-to-month basis, and that survey is 7 times larger than the household survey. So I have a question. Are there reasons why construction is shedding jobs? Many construction employers are also citing labor shortages. So that's a great question. I would say most employers across the board and industries are citing some sort of labor shortages. Construction is an interesting problem here in that, Colorado's construction losses are kind of running counter to what we're seeing nationally. So it could be a number of reasons that jobs are drying up. Could be the cost of labor, the cost of goods in order to build either your commercial or residential construction. I do expect with their expected revisions that we're going to announce on Wednesday, that the establishment survey is underestimating construction employment at present, and that we should expect some upward revisions. So look for that as well when we release it on Wednesday. But at present, while construction employment growth is certainly lagging other industries, we do believe that the official series is understating those employment numbers. Tamara asks, Ryan, regarding the labor force decline in July, is there any indication that this is attributed to gig workers or others who used to be on unemployment? but dropped out of the workforce. Yeah, unfortunately, we really can't dig into those kind of details. Some of it could be just statistical noise, just how these numbers will move around from month to month. It could be that we're seeing retirements. It could be that individuals have to opt out of the labor force temporarily to care for someone or to watch a child. There could be a ton of different reasons that we may not fully understand the picture until later this year or early next year. Ryan, do you have any idea how Colorado shapes up compared to other states? Oh, shoot, it's moving. Other states in terms of how many potential people might be losing federal benefits. Blair, I haven't looked at that. What we did here internally was run a custom report within the department. So I really don't know how other states may shape up in terms of people losing benefits. As most of you know, there were a number of states in June and July that either terminated PUC PUA programs or the FPUC programs. I believe it was around 23 states, something along like that. So there are about half the states in the nation had already voluntarily terminated their federal benefits earlier than the September deadline. Oh, Phil, you get one.
I do. I have one. It's nice they're asking you the questions today. So Tamara wants to know, do I have an update on how many employers filled out the job refusal form and what happened after they did so? Did a number of claimants get cut off from benefits, and did CDLE respond to employers? Tamara, I don't have any updated numbers on those, but we can dig to obtain those numbers. I can tell you that job refusal reports continue to come in from employers today and have continued all along. I will remind you that just prior to switch over into MyUI Plus, that approximately 14% of all of those reported job refusals were resulting in a denial of unemployment insurance benefits. Some of those denials were because individuals believed they could earn more on unemployment, which automatically cut them off. But there would be denials for other reasons on there also. But I can obtain, or we can try to obtain some updated numbers for you and provide them to you later. And so this is also going to depend, Tamara, as to whether we get back to those employers. Depends as to whether it's ultimately a base period employer on the state unemployment insurance claim. If they are a base period employer on that state unemployment insurance claim reporting a job refusal from a particular individual, they become an interested party to that decision. So then they ultimately receive that decision also. If they are an employer for whom that individual has not already performed services on the claim, either as the most recent employer or as a base period employer, then that employer generally does not receive that decision because they are not considered an interested party on that. And the only individual that receives that may be the claimant itself. That does not mean that you would not have the division have that employer present in an unemployment insurance hearing to provide information during that hearing, because those hearings are de novo in nature. In other words, the hearing officer is obtaining facts at that point in time and issuing a brand new decision.
Let me take Ed's follow-up here. Yeah, Ed, so just to be clear here, the PUC, you could treat the PUC PUA as a subset of the 116, right? So if you're receiving a benefit, you're also going to be eligible for FPUC. So, but again, I think it's crucial to break it down these different groups. But yes, the 87,000, you could treat that as a subset of the 116,000, as in the individuals in PUA and FPUC are also going to be receiving am I getting my acronyms right? Those on PUA and PUC are also going to be receiving FPUC. FPUC is also going to be given to individuals that aren't on those federal extended programs like regular state UI and a number of other programs.
Yeah, correct. And I think to follow up on that, Ryan, here, the important thing to remember is if you're talking about how many people may be cut off where there's absolutely nothing, remember that's more of that figure sitting around that 87,000 Coloradans will lose those. And remember the other thing that Ryan talked about was as we close in on people who have maybe that 5 weeks left of state unemployment benefits, then those extensions would not be available to them at that point in time. So as Ryan has discussed, when we talk about the $116,000 figure, that's about all claimants who are currently receiving that FPUC. So as Ryan has noted, that includes people who are currently on PUA, currently on PEUC, and people who are currently on regular state unemployment. So if you look at those numbers, out of those on regular state unemployment, 7,200 of them will have their regular state unemployment ending in about 5 weeks where they will exhaust benefits. There would be an additional population there where they're not looking at those state benefits ending within 5 weeks, sometime later down the road, but they will not be receiving that $300 per week any longer.
Another way you could think about it, let's just say someone on regular UI, the average weekly benefit amount right now is probably about $380 a week. With the FPUC, that boosts your weekly benefit amount to about $680. And so then when you take away the FPUC, even if you continue to receive regular UI, then you go back to that weekly benefit amount of about $380. Okay, we have some other questions from Ed. Do I have any thoughts on why we're falling further behind the national average on unemployment rates? Yeah, even as our labor force declines slightly. Ed, I've mentioned this in previous calls, and I think I provided a neat little table last time to kind of explain this, but I think really when we look over the long run over the last year or so, rather than just the past month, Colorado's labor force participation and labor force participation rate is covered faster than most states. You know, through July, Colorado had the 9th fastest recovery in the labor force participation rate. As I also mentioned, Colorado's labor force participation rate is 4th highest in the nation. With that, those people are going to be included within the unemployment or employed status calculation. If you have a low labor force where people opt out of the labor force, those people aren't included in the unemployment rate. So if you actually had the U.S. labor force participation rate return to where it was pre-pandemic, the U.S. unemployment rate, I believe, would be something like 7.9%. So Colorado is, when we calculate the unemployment rate, there is kind of this penalty baked in because Colorado has a lot more people opting back into the labor force. They're actively seeking work. All right, Phil, is this next one for you?
From Tamara. Anyone know what percent of folks on unemployment, including federal, have some part-time work but are able to get full or partial benefits? And Tamara, I assume you're looking for those individuals who we have who are still partially employed but able to receive benefits. I wouldn't have those numbers immediately available. We do try to track partial weeks of benefits paid. So perhaps we can dig to look for some of those numbers for you. A reminder, this number may be higher than in the past as the state legislature had temporarily passed a change to the law that allowed individuals to earn 50% of their weekly benefit amount before it began reducing benefits on their claim. So you may have some individuals who were able to earn some more on there before it negatively impacted an unemployment insurance claim. The one thing that never changed to that is if an individual performed services for 32 hours a week or more, they were no longer eligible to receive any unemployment insurance benefits. If their earnings equaled or exceeded the weekly benefit amount on their claim, they were not eligible for benefits during that week. So while there was an adjustment to the amount that individuals could continue to receive below that at the 50%, those two things still remained the same throughout the pandemic. And Sarah, I'm going to see if I can address this one for you. So is it accurate to say 116,000 Coloradans will lose at least some benefits the week ending September 4th? It would be accurate to say that at minimum 116,000 people will lose the additional $300 per week that they receive related to that. Within that context of 116,000 individuals, approximately 87,000 of them will lose everything because the PUA program and the PEUC program will end. And, Ryan, I think I'll let you handle this one for Blair. We looked at data from states that ended federal UI programs early and whether or not that boosted the labor force or job gains to see how this might work out here.
So Blair, I actually just came across a study. I haven't had time to look at it, just a summary that identifies or provides some analysis of comparisons to states that opted out of federal programs and states that didn't. Long story short, as expected, we see slight increases in the employment ratio in states that opted out versus states that didn't. Also see decline in claims, UI claims activity, which is obvious because you've suddenly removed a bunch of people from eligibility. What also the study found was that net spending dropped in the states that terminated federal benefits early versus states that didn't. And so I think that may have a larger impact on the economy than the states that didn't. I'm happy if you want to reach out to our PR group, I'm happy to share that study with you or whoever else is interested. Again, it literally, I think, was published this morning. Although in terms of continuing claims, I think it's about 140,000 for all programs for regular UI, PUA, and PUC. Again, I just want to make a distinction in that what we're reporting here are the number of people that were paid on the week ending 14th. Wayne, I did answer the question on Colorado's unemployment rate being higher. We've covered this extensively over the past few months. I think we really last month's talking points are really going to capture that, capture the points I made in terms of this, kind of penalty for a higher return in labor force participation.
And then Ryan, I'm going to take Aldo's claim here, which is asking, do you have a count on held or contested claims? What number of remaining contested claims will hold over after September 6th? Might need to know a little clarification here, Aldo, because as you recall, what we would consider held or contested claims would be when an employer is sending in that response to the request for facts about separation from an individual's employment. So if you recall, prior to claims filed effective August 8th of 2021, the executive order was actually allowing payment of benefits on claims while we were processing those unemployment insurance claims. So you would not have had that holding up payment on claim as a contested claim. Effective with claims that are filed effective August 8th, 2021 and beyond, we have gone back to, or that executive order has expired, been amended so that we are back into the world of where we would normally process unemployment insurance claims, meaning that at the time a claim is filed, the request for separation information goes out to the employer. They now have, because there was an adjustment in the statute, they have 7 calendar days to provide their protest of that unemployment insurance claim. And so now we will be looking at claims where payments are held up pending decisions being issued on those claims. I will tell you, Aldo, from past experience, it normally takes 4 to 6 weeks to process an unemployment insurance claim. If we return and look at some of the data we had within the Great Recession, it could take initially, as we continue to keep up with a claim load that is showing about double what would normally be seen at this time of year, it could take anywhere up to potentially 11 weeks to process those claims. However, staff will do everything they can to make sure we're processing those and issuing decisions in a far more efficient manner than that. What remains to be seen is in the past under that recession, employers had 12 calendar days to respond. Now they have 7, which will hopefully speed up part of that process as we move forward. As a note, claims that still have holds, if we're talking about fraud holds, those numbers still always remain in flux because these fraudsters, again, are persistent. And now they have moved into actually hijacking unemployment insurance claims also. And so those numbers remain so in flux that it's hard to give you any kind of set number on those. However, rest assured that on claims that are being held right now, either it's a fraud investigation and subsequently they are determined not to be a fraudulent claim, we will make those claimants whole for that period of time where they should have been receiving benefits all the way up and through the ending of those programs September 4th. Again, although you may have current claims that get caught up in fraud holds also, because this is not fraud schemes are not going to go away simply because these programs are ending September 4th. As we've seen, they have moved rapidly into trying to file in on state unemployment insurance claims too. So we will continue to have those fraud holes. We will continue to work with Aldo as a little more. We have engaged with the U.S. Department of Labor, and we actually volunteered to be part of, I believe it's 6 other states, engaging tiger teams so that we can continue to look at these processes to try to make them more efficient so that we can release those that should be released and stop those that shouldn't. And I'm going to take George Russell's. Will COVID-related layoffs be charged to employers' accounts after the federal programs end in September? At this point in time, that would remain to be seen, although again, it's going to depend on when a claim is effective and dependent upon the executive order, as that exhausts. The executive order requires that there either be a national, well, the executive order provided the opportunity to grant non-charging to those COVID-related separations. So if a separation occurs on a claim that is prior to those end dates, those non-charging rules would still apply. Ultimately, you will have claims come back a subsequent year where that employer is in the base period on a subsequent claim. And so arguably, since you non-charged them during the year, you would non-charge them on the following year via previously adjudicated job separation.
I think the next 2 are mine. So Wayne, the studies conducted by, it looks like 6 individuals, isn't, I believe they're economists, but it's not a particular organization. But again, I'm happy to provide that study and the summary to you if you're interested in that. There's also I believe there was a JP Morgan study recently that also looked at the impact, the early impacts. Again, it's very, very difficult at this point. There's not a lot of timely data to really look at this, but there are some studies that are at least attempting to look at those differences. Sarah asks, is it fair to say that any volatility in unemployment claims due to Delta aren't captured in this data, given the reference week? And do you have any insight do you have any insight on the impact Delta's had on claims in Colorado? At this point, I would say no impact. If we look at regular UI, last week, initial claims hit their lowest level in the pandemic at 3,255 initial claims for regular UI. I think really the impacts would be seen if we start seeing business shutdowns or capacity restrictions, if Delta really started to accelerate within the state relative to, say, the southern part of the nation. Colorado's increase in case rates and hospitalizations is relatively low compared to the rest of the nation. Certainly something we'll keep an eye on. And next month's employment situation will include data for the reference week containing the 12th in August. But from a claim standpoint, from a benefit payment standpoint, we're not seeing any real impact that we could say tie to the pandemic. And with that, I think we give a couple more seconds for additional questions. All right, it looks like we've completed here. Our next, again, as I mentioned, our next press call for the employment situation release will be on Friday, September 17th. Let me just verify that. Yes, Friday, September 17th. And again, for those who are really interested in the our non-farm expected revisions or non-farm payroll series, that data will be released on LMI Gateway on Wednesday, August 25th, as well as we'll distribute a press release. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.